4.3 billion people live across this vast continent called Asia, and we are telling their stories. On this edition, Left Behind, they're born and raised in Indonesia. These children have no rights. Millions at risk of becoming a lost generation. The effects of war that have scarred generations. The suffering left behind in Vietnam. And when their parents went to prison, they had nowhere to go. The village that gave these children a home and hope.
I'm Andy Saputra, and this is Assignment Asia. Welcome to the program. It's hard to believe, but more than half of the children in Indonesia are not entitled to their most basic rights. The problem lies in a complex registration system that most parents here can't understand, and those that do can't afford. I went into the slums on the outskirts of Jakarta to find out about the efforts to save a forgotten generation.
Nama saya Wahyudin, umur 12 tahun. Jika besar nanti saya ingin jadi pemain bola.
Nama saya Darwane, kelas 2, umur 8 tahun. Cita-cita saya menjadi pilot.
Like all children, Wahyu and Darwani can't wait to grow up. They have big dreams of leaving this fishing village on the outskirts of Jakarta and leading a better life. But their chances of doing so are slim, because as far as the government is concerned, Wahyu and Darwani don't exist. There are millions of people like them all across Indonesia. Children who don't have the right to free education, free healthcare, and other services, because their parents didn't register them at birth. Wahyu is one of the lucky ones. Through a charity, he has been able to attend school. But he thinks football is far more interesting. Religiously practicing with his dad since he was little, even the rain can't stop them. And there's no denying the kid's got talent.
Ya, Wahyu tuh main bola tuh kayaknya si jago, Pak. Sering dipanggil sama gurunya. Cuma kadang-kadang ya begitu, pulang lagi, kenapa Wahyu? Nggak punya akte, Pak, katanya nggak boleh.
For Wahyu and his family, football could be their ticket out of poverty. Opportunities in the slum are few and far between, and this one is in danger of slipping away.
Jadi disayangin sama gurunya juga. Ini main bolanya cakep, cuma nggak punya akte, nggak bisa ikut. Jadi itulah yang sering pulang nangis, saya yang bikin sakit tuh. Masya Allah, kata saya, gimana ini? Masalah akte aja jadi kendala.
Martin told us he has been trying to get Wahyu and his younger brother birth certificates, but he can't afford the fees.
Ngurusnya sih nggak susah, Pak. Kalau ada dana sih mungkin bisa aja ya.
Mahal tapi gitu.
Iya, teman saya juga ngurus kok. Bikin itu aja 400. Terus iya, terus bayar itunya, bikin yang ngurus itu semuanya 1.200.000 habis.
The process of obtaining a birth certificate in Indonesia can be convoluted and costly. Parents have 60 days to apply for one after their child is born. During this time, it's free, but after 2 months, they have to pay 1,000,000 rupiah, about $100. And if they wait longer than a year, they will also have to go through the district court. Many of Indonesia's poorest citizens cannot read or write, so they don't understand the procedures. Feeling it's all just too complicated, they frequently fail to register their child's birth. Darwani was allowed to attend public school after a local charity persuaded the principal. He's a model student. Come rain or shine, when it's time to go to class, this fisherman's son is always excited. But without a birth certificate, Derwani can't graduate from grade school and won't be able to continue his studies.
Jadi saya tuh mau bikin sampai 1.200.000, kita duit dari mana? Orang kerjanya aja selebihnya makan tuh kita tuh susah namanya lebihnya sedikit-sedikit buat kepentingan bajunya, apanya gitu.
Derwani's mother knows he is set for a hard life. Children without birth certificates often struggle to find work when they're older, and with no official record of their existence, there is an increased risk of falling prey to human traffickers. According to Plan International and UNICEF, Indonesia has one of the worst track records in the world when it comes to registering its children. 60% of kids under the age of 5 do not have birth certificates. This disparity is among the highest in the world. This is Firman. He and his wife also live in the slum. They were madly in love when they met. They got married and soon after had Alif. And for a while, everything was perfect. Then one day, Firman noticed the problem.
Kalau udah aktif, udah. Badannya kan semakin gede, makin bengkak badannya. Kalau udah kenceng, keras sekali, dipegang aja dia sakit. Udah diem. Paling pak sakit. Sakit ya udah. Tidurin. Kalau yang dimban, diajak jalan-jalan. Keluar beli jajan.
Alif has a severe case of hernia and is in need of an operation. Firman brought his son to the public clinic, but was turned away because Alif as well is unregistered. As a dock hand, Firman earns just $2 on days he can get work. He doesn't have the money or the know-how to get Alif a birth certificate.
This is the conundrum that Indonesia faces as the government is trying to better the lives of millions of its poor people with policies such as free schooling and free healthcare, programs that are desperately needed for people like Alif, Derwani, and Wahyu. Ironically, they are the very same people that don't qualify because of a piece of paper.
But there is help for some. Tucked away in the narrow streets of one of the poorest neighborhoods in Jakarta is this makeshift school, founded by a Catholic charity. Today, the kids are performing a play. Some goof around while others are serious. But the message is clear. School is both fun and necessary.
Kami hanya ingin memberikan motivasi saja, menginspirasi saja pada anak-anak itu. Di sini sebagai tempat untuk anak-anak itu punya mimpi. Coba kalau kita tanya anak-anak di sini, kamu cita-citanya besok ingin jadi apa? Pasti tidak punya cita-cita. Lalu tidak pernah berpikir ke depan itu mau jadi apa, mau pengen jadi apa. Tidak pernah seperti itu. Nah, kita akan menemukan supaya anak-anak itu punya mimpi itu.
The school was built in 2002. So far, it has helped pay for about 200 kids from the slum to study in the nearby private school. But program coordinator Yosef Marsudi says that if these children don't get birth certificates, future generations will be affected as well.
Mereka tidak punya kelengkapan data-data yang dibutuhkan, syarat-syarat yang dibutuhkan. Itu tadi, kalau mungkin dia nggak punya surat lahirnya, itu nggak ada. Ada surat lahirnya, tidak ada surat nikahnya orang tua. Itu.
That's why Yosef conducts this awareness class to help parents in the area obtain birth certificates for their children. Derwani's mom is in attendance today. The foundation is part of Jakarta, a consortium of NGOs lobbying the government to reform the child registration system. Max Andrew is one of its driving forces.
Idenya itu adalah soal tata akta kelahiran itu. Akta kelahiran bagaimana mereka sulitnya sekali mendapatkan akta kelahiran saat itu. Dan saat itu banyak orang-orang yang tidak punya akta kelahiran.
Max, now 26, has been working with street kids since he was 13. He says one of the main reasons why children lack opportunities is because they're not registered.
Yang perlu dilakukan pemerintah, selama ini kita masih melihat sistemnya adalah bahwa masyarakat yang harus aktif mengurus akta kelahiran itu, bukan negara yang harusnya aktif. Gitu. Nah, terus pemerintah merasa menyamakan semuanya bahwa oh ya udah nih sekarang harus punya akta kelahiran dan sebagainya, padahal dia nggak melihat dulu sistem yang dulu tuh buruk.
Here in the capital, the Jakarta city government has started to make changes. During his time as governor of Jakarta, Indonesian President Joko Widodo made birth certificates free of charge. But parents still must register their children within the year. But activists say the lack of information on the change, coupled with systemic corruption that still haunts Indonesia, has made it almost impossible for millions to obtain their basic rights.
From the service point of view is we have to look at the accessibility of the services to the community. If we look at most of the services is located at the province or district level, which is, well, it's free of charge, but then you have the transportation cost, for example. So that's, how do we make the services accessible to the community? That's on the service point of view. But on the demand side as well, so how do we make the people aware the implications, the legal implications of birth registration, so making it as important as well.
Progress might be slow, and stopgap solutions like Yosel's program has often become the only hope for children like Wahyu, Derwani and Alif. But advocates are pushing for reforms to the system so these kids can get the chances they so desperately need.
While the problem remains a huge challenge for the Indonesian government, signs of progress have given a reason for cautious optimism here. Now stay with us when we come back. Children who suffer from the most severe deformities as a result of the United States war tactics more than 30 years ago. Our stories this week are about those who are left behind. And when the United States forces withdrew from Vietnam nearly 40 years ago, they left a legacy that continues to scar generations of innocent families. But as Martin Lowe reports from Danang, the money can help, but never heal millions of children. A warning, some images in what you're about to see are disturbing.
Haunted faces, broken bodies. These children are the legacy of a war fought 50 years before they were born. Children so badly deformed their parents cannot cope. Most will spend their entire lives in hospitals like this one in Ho Chi Minh City, previously called Saigon. Many will prematurely die here. Their parents' parents were exposed to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. In the 1960s, the US sprayed millions of gallons of the chemical from planes and helicopters into the jungle. Agent Orange contained highly toxic dioxin. Its purpose was to kill the trees the North Vietnamese soldiers hid under and destroy the rice fields so they'd have no food. But they were not the only things affected. The chemical polluted the food chain and the waterways. In time, people became sick with cancer, and they carried it in their genes. New generations were born with terrible deformities. Today, millions of lives are still blighted. Those like Dang Thi Hua. She was born 17 years after the war ended, but her entire life has been shaped by it. With deformed legs and feet, Hua can only walk with difficulty. Like her grandfather, father and brother, she is a victim of Agent Orange.
I was sad to see my friends go to school, dance, sing and play together when I could not. Now they are grown up, they have jobs and earn money, but I cannot. At my age, my friends are getting married and have families, but I cannot.
Hua's grandfather, Dang Ngoc Ta, was a soldier living near the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where the chemical was widely used. He developed cancer and died. The family's first abnormalities were seen in his son, Hua's father, Dang Van Sun. Before Hua was born, Sun and his wife had another child, a boy, but he died a day after he was born.
The Americans caused many consequences. They caused pain for the Vietnamese people, pain which every day affects their lives.
Now the US is back in Vietnam, attempting to put right some of the wrongs. This was the former US airbase at Danang, where much of the Agent Orange was stored. Some leaked or was washed into the ground. An enormous concrete enclosure is being built to decontaminate thousands of cubic meters of dioxin-polluted soil by superheating it to more than 300 degrees centigrade. This is the first site of Agent Orange contaminated soil where clearance work has begun. But the Vietnamese government says so far it's identified 29 dioxin hotspots across the country. The decontamination is costing the US government $84 million. There's also money to help victims obtain medical care. But the US is resisting Vietnamese calls for compensation.
Our focus when it comes to dioxin is the remediation and assessment work. But we are, as I said, working with the Ministry of Health to improve systems for care in country for all Vietnamese, regardless of cause for their illness.
This centre at Da Nang cares for children and young people with psychological difficulties linked to Agent Orange. Some of those here are 30 years old, but still cannot read or write. The centre tries to equip them to cope with basic work. Those working with victims want the US to do more.
If the US gave more active support to clean up dioxin in the soil and the water, I think there would be less people affected in the future. Now 20 to 25% of victims are third generation. If America did more, I think the numbers would reduce.
Back at the Ho Chi Minh Hospital, Pham Thi Linh shows the resilience of the young. Born without arms, she has learned to write with her feet. Gia Lam will one day try to do the same. Dr. Tan has been treating victims for 25 years and has seen the human cost of Agent Orange.
I think the US use of Agent Orange was inhuman. It has caused so many injuries. Even the US soldiers in Vietnam were affected by the dioxin. All people should condemn its use and say it should never, ever be used again.
This is a legacy which as yet has no end. Disabilities are being passed on generation to generation. Even now, 38 years after the Vietnam War ended, babies are still being born with deformities directly linked to Agent Orange. The US says it's committed to the cleanup at Da Nang and is in discussions over decontamination at more dioxin hotspots. It says this to questions over whether Agent Orange should ever have been used.
That's an aspect of the war that is in part of that painful history that we have. We're excited to be here addressing it through this project.
It's a painful history that continues to affect people like Hua and thousands more, adults and children, condemned to a life in care and a future without hope. For Assignment Asia, I'm Martin Lowe with the victims of Agent Orange in Vietnam.
Agent Orange not only affected people in Vietnam, but also thousands of United States and Allied troops who were also exposed to it. They received compensation back in 1984 from the manufacturers of the orange gas, but there's still no talk of compensating the Vietnamese victims. Next on Assignment Asia, a home for kids left behind when their parents are sent to jail. There's an English saying, you commit the crime, you do the time. But what happens if you're the only parent your child has got? This is the dilemma that is facing hundreds of thousands of parents in China who are sent to jail and have to rely on others to care for their child. Many turn to their extended families, but some don't even have that option. Tang Bo visited one place in Beijing, founded especially to help children of criminals who had nowhere else to go.
They are weeding the fields and preparing the soil. Leading the team is 22-year-old Ma Jiacai. He came here as an orphan when he was 9. His father was sentenced to death for killing his mother. He had nowhere else to go, so he came to Sun Village.
I have made many changes. One is I'm less hot-tempered now and became well-behaved. I was lucky that I was brought here. They took good care of me, and I got access to better education. Some children who were in similar situations back home are now doing very badly.
Unlike Ma Jiacai, most kids here have one or both parents still living, but the parents can't take care of them because they are in prison. The Chen triplets are 7 years old. They've been here for 2 years. Their mother killed their father.
The three of them cried all the time when they first got here. They wanted to see their mom. We had to lie to them and tell them their mom was in the hospital and that she'd pick them up after she recovered.
One of the brothers saw their mother kill their father and has fallen into a depression. The experience has left them scarred.
Compared to other kids here, the triplets are different. They are very timid and always get bullied by other children. I once even told them they could fight back, but they just didn't dare. I think this has a lot to do with their mother killing their father. They're traumatized.
According to the government, more than 600,000 children in China have at least one parent in prison. About 1 in 10 live in poor conditions. Based on her own experience, Zhang Shuqing became concerned about the children left behind. So she opened Sun Village.
I used to be a high-ranking police officer at a jail in Shanxi province. I noticed that many prisoners, especially the female ones, attempted to escape or even committed suicide because they were worried about their children who were left alone. I found there were no laws to protect these children, so I decided to do something about it.
They live in modest conditions, bonded by the difficult experiences they share. But at least here, they have a structure to their daily lives. They go to local schools and learn how to be responsible by cleaning up after themselves and doing chores. Sun Village provides shelter and support to about 100 children whose parents are serving prison sentences. But raising the funds to keep this running is itself a major challenge. These kids face social stigma because of the actions of their parents. To stay open, Sun Village relies on private donors and other charities. Every week, they receive clothes, food, and school supplies.
This time, I've brought along all my employees. Most of them are very young and need to become aware that many people in this rich and materialistic society are dedicated to helping those in need.
Besides the donations, Sun Village has a nearby farm to help support itself. The kids learn valuable skills in how to plant and grow fruits and vegetables. They eat what they grow and sell any extra to make money for Sun Village.
在办这个农场的时候，我主要的这个目的就是为了教育孩子。
I built this farm for the children's education. They're all poor children who mostly come from a poverty-stricken area, from a region with a high crime rate, or from western part of China. They have to face the reality that their parents can't take care of them in the future and learn to become independent. So I want to develop their ability to take care of themselves. They need to go to the farm and help every weekend. They need to know they must survive in society through their own efforts after they leave some village.
In Ma Jiacai's case, he decided to come back to Sun Village after working as a migrant worker for 6 years.
The village is lacking staff, and I miss my little brothers and sisters here. So I decided to come back to help take care of them and the village.
Like the rest of the workers and volunteers here, Ma hopes to help these children by providing the foundation for a normal life. Because here, they are safe until they're old enough to go out on their own, or until their parents are released from prison. For Simon Asia, I'm Tang Bo in Beijing.
Giving hope to children who so desperately need it. You can learn more about all our stories today by visiting our website at www.assignment-asia.com. You can share your thoughts on the stories and contribute ideas for future shows. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Andy Saputra. Thanks for watching, and join us again on Assignment Asia.